And welcome back, everybody, once again to the PCS Summer Split Playoffs. Well, we are one game into the series right now between Frank Esports and Deep Cross Gaming, and the result may shock you. Well, we'll discuss our game 2 and what we think needs to change. Before that, though, I would like to thank our sponsors, CTBC Bank and China Airlines. Now, Nightstar, I know you've been bursting with it. Put on the analyst cap, put on Coach Nightstar. I want to hear what Frank need to do in game 2 as they're now on blue side.
They're going to go over the blue side, so there's a couple of issues that happened in that previous game that really took over the game, I would say. The Renekton was a big problem for YSKM, didn't get the lane well against it, and then with all the attention being thrown up into the top lane, he wasn't getting the support from his team to allow him to thrive as well. So they weren't able to play around YSKM, and they didn't play away from him either. They kind of just didn't do anything. So there has to be a cohesive plan now. If we do get a targeted up top lane, we have to be able to trade out for much more in that bottom side. So I think that has to be addressed in this next draft. Also, the Kalista, maybe that ends up being the priority pick here for M&M in this particular game, to just allow them to play a little bit more lane dominant. And the last thing, of course, is carries did have an absolutely abysmal performance in game number 1. We need to see him step it up in game number 2, as already the adaptation is take Renekton off the table.
I do think, based on what happened, that is a wise decision. The Kalista is banned by Deep Cross themselves, as well as the Fiora, as to be expected up against YSKM, leaving his Jax open, but clearly they've shown they can deal with it. I wonder if this maybe doesn't turn into more of a Camille game for the Frank side. We'll have to see. Still a couple of bans left to go here. That Yuumi stays banned out against Woody. And yeah, I think that is a big problem down bottom. Talia banned now up against Nesty. If carries can't really play Nautilus to the level we expect of everyone in the PCS, that is a big liability.
Now with this first pick, Lucian,
Poppy up.
Poppy left available here, and Poppy is going to get locked in. They have banned this champion on both blue and red side, so I actually thought they just didn't have it in them. And Hollow, the last time he was on it, didn't exactly perform well. So that will be something really to watch for in this game, as we look for him to have the early game priority, but also be able to hit those hammer shots when it comes to, in these team fights, being able to knock priority targets out.
Yeah, there's a reason Poppy gets banned quite a lot. Frank themselves, as you mentioned, banned at both sides of the rift, but Hollow getting his chance on it once again. This will be his third go on the champion. Hasn't won on it just yet. We'll see if that can improve. For Deep Cross Gaming, they get the Silas for Nesty, also a takeaway from Pretender. And look at this. Yep. We've got the Lucian lock-in, which means we'll probably be in for a Nami. Looks like we're in for another early mid-game strategy, Nightstar.
And this is looking a pretty good start for the DCG draft. You get yourself the Silas and you get yourself the Lucian pick. For Frank Esports, they could go for the Akali if they want to play more of a hyper carry in that bottom lane. I would prefer the Zir, but this might be one of those games where you just kind of go full throttle. Maybe they go for a Draven pick here later on in the second phase, as it does look like Frank Esports, they want to get their priority top laner. For DCG, they will, of course, lock in the Nami before it gets banned away in the second phase, but it also means perhaps Frank Esports, they go ahead, ban away the Mordekaiser, or ban away the Gragas, which are two picks that can mitigate Camille's impact up in the top lane.
Yeah, they got some dive brewing for themselves, the Frank side, this time around. So let's see what they end up pairing it up with. If we go toe-to-toe, fight fire with early games, the Draven could come through for Eminem. Of course, Eminem is a player that is definitely well-versed in those aggressive types of champions. You just got to look back at his record as well. As a player, I think he's been one of our historically better bot lanes. Well, Cascada, still a rookie this season, has already shown up huge. The Lucian Nami, a tough lane to deal with. And that Nautilus ban by Deep Cross, interesting, because carries did play so poorly on it. I guess it still has to be respected for its abilities. As the Mordekaiser's banned away by Leaky, speaking of respect.
Yeah, it does make a little bit more sense here in this instance, because it is one of those support champions that can dive into a team, just like the rest of the squad right now lined up for Frank Esports. It's a much different dynamic than the previous game, right? Where you have Trundle, who's looking to kind of just hover around a fight, the outskirts of a fight, throwing down pillars, and then taking his time to get into it. Now for Frank Esports, because you have the Camille and the Akali on top of it, it'll be interesting to see what kind of AD carry they go for. Compositionally, this would set up for a Draven, a Samira. It's just a matter of, do Frank Esports have that in their repertoire?
Entirely possible. Sejuani has been a go-to for Leaky when he has been on tank duty with the Gragas already banned away, as well as his Mordekaiser. That is going to be the choice. So, get themselves a little bit more front to back, a little more front line, and as you said it, the Draven is a distinct possibility, being hovered here by Eminem. The Ezreal will be a much safer option, as with the Aphelios, give them some late game insurance. But I do like the idea of getting aggro with it. Let's see what they do. Aphelios it is.
They do end up locking in the Aphelios, and I don't like this Aphelios pick because of the fact that, well, there's not a lot of protection for you, right? Because you don't have that Azir. They go for something like a Renata. It could give you a little bit of insurance policy, but they go for the Lulu instead. So an Enchanter for Eminem. Carries on the engaged support did not look good, so maybe a change in scenery will help him out.
Yeah, he played Enchanters quite a lot in the last series. That didn't go well either, but maybe this will change here. For Deep Cross, they're going to get the Aatrox last for Leaky, lock it in for a carry v carry top match, even with Renekton banned away. I like this. For Deep Cross, the Sejuani was just a flex. We've been seeing this more and more come through, and believe it or not, Hana's not actually played at this split. But that does make sense, given the fact that, well, he has been
At the Scrim CFO,
well,
Gemini has been playing it, right? So
exactly. It all makes sense. I mean, this is all, I want to clarify, this is all speculation. We have no inside information about the Deep Cross gaming scrims. We are merely checking things. And right now, I think they're definitely taking a leaf out of the Flying Oyster playbook.
And looking at this compositions, Frank Esports, this is clearly a top-sided focus draft, right? You have this Camille and you have a Poppy. What other lanes are you going to be ganking for, right? You don't have CC in the mid lane. You don't have great CC in the bot lane either until maybe level 6 with the Lulu, right? So it should be a lot of hollow in that top side, and this is, at the very least, a change in draft strategy coming into game 2.
Yeah. The question remains, how will the execution fare? I do like getting the Poppy when it was available into Holo's hands. I think a lot of pressure is going to be on him to try and prop up YSCam from the expected pressure, the roam potential coming out of both Nesty and Hana. For Cascada and Woody, Pretty aggressive 2v2. I think it's going to be on Eminem and Carries to just survive. Speaking of survival, Frank Esports, they would love to prove they can be a top 4 team, move forward, go beyond the record that they have had thus far in the PCS Summer Playoffs, get closer to a World Championship appearance. Because right now, they are 2 games away from getting dropped out, and that dream going unfulfilled for the season.
DCG come out with, I would say, a still pretty strong draft here. You have a couple melee champions to play around the Sejuani, so that always feels nice up in that top half. And bot side, it's yet another strong 2v2 lane, which is what they did lack a little bit against Beyond Gaming. Yes, they did play a Draven lane, but the Draven did not pan out because they didn't play around it. This is a lane that you can sort of leave to its own devices because there's really no answers on the flip side. The Aphelios, Lulu isn't, they can lane all right, but it's very difficult for them to get kill pressure onto you.
Yeah, I think that does mean that Eminem and Carries are going to have to get a little creative as they try for this brush bait. They do find Woody. However, Cascada just peppers them full of damage on the opposite side. So, yeah, I mean, this is a Lucian Nami lane. What do you expect?
Yeah, Carries getting absolutely hammered in that level 1 trade. He's going to have to expend 2 potions. And Sustain did get nerfed on this patch. It was the Dragon buffs and the Sustain nerfs that happened. So, big punishing trades like this will be very detrimental heading to level 2, and of course level 3 once that Lucian Nami fully comes online with their skills.
And that being said, the sustain of the Nami is also taking a hard hit. One of the reasons we see this lane less and less, in fact. Eminem does find a nice angle on Cascada. Ooh, Carries fire on Woody. They get a good split. However, the turnaround is there, and a little extra damage procced off the electrocute from Woody. Yeah, electrocute first strike. It's very aggressive in that bottom side. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a first blood with no junglers involved at all.
And you know what? Carries is getting a couple of good slows in, Qs in this lane to help even out the trade. So it's actually looking a little bit more even than I would have expected. That's why it's
But heal was burned. Keep that in mind. Eminem did have to pop that early
on. It is only a cleanse, though, on the flip side. So
that's true. They don't have a match. And other lanes, checking in how that's going down. Pretender does manage to have the wave shoved up against Nesty right now. Last time around, Pretender just wasn't able to do much against Nesty's Lissandra, but he's got a pretty healthy CS lead here on this Akali, pretty self-sufficient as well. And Holo on the level 3 spots Nesty just on the edge of his own jungle and chases him out a river so he can secure Scuttle Crab. I do want to see what Holo can do in this matchup. He hasn't had to go top just yet because YSKM hasn't been under fire himself.
Yep.
He has a level advantage that just gets evened out by Leaky and has the Ignite, which should dissuade Leaky from going all in solo.
Oh, Pretender could get ganked.
Yeah. Oh, instantly forced to flash away. Nicely done. And Holo was on the wrap around the long side. Sahana smelling blood immediately gets first blood for Nesty in the mid lane.
I mean, the goal was to get double crab in that instance, right? It was just Pretender wasn't quite on the same page, playing super far forward, but almost a 2v2 kill here.
Yeah, Woody taking low. Eminem and Carries are starting to flex a little bit into this matchup. Nice to see for Frank on that side, but in the mid, you're right. Miscommunication, something we expected from the spring split as Carries goes in, and he gets the kill onto Woody as Eminem moves forward. Cascada forced to relentlessly pursue his own tower. And that is very close to being 2 kills fired back. So this time, Eminem and Carries are showing up. Carries determined to redeem himself, Nightstar, from last game.
Being to play more for the lane here, and it's paying off. Taking this Lulu pick has really mitigated this Lucian Nami, and once Lucian Nami does fall behind, it can be a struggle for them to get back into it. So that will be a very big lane to now evaluate coming in from the side of DCG. Do they start pulling Hana down into that bot lane now? Because then that opens the possibilities for then YSKM to work his 1v1 magic and just continue to take those fights as he starts outscaling the 1v1 as well. So you get to see the trades come through, and Woody just walks up and forgets that there's an ignite on this Lulu. So it's a pretty easy kill to secure here.
The Brush Lulu is the deadliest. Exhaust even burned. He gets flashed out. Doesn't really need to do that, I don't think, but he wants to make sure he doesn't give a kill back to Frescata. Holo, meanwhile, with carries roaming in the mid. So Frank have got back on the board. It's already a much better early game than the last time around, and they're not necessarily facing a timer or working with one like they have with the Jax. YSKM is having a better lane. All around, better things for Frank. But I guess after that last game, there really was nowhere to go but up as YSKM goes in, finds Leaky on that hook shot. But
level
now,
6!
On level 6, he actually finds him on a timing window. Well done. YSKM with a solo play. Says, how about that? When you don't have jungler to back you up, I can take you any day.
Yeah. Oh, and he gets to just take the 1v1 lane. Look at the difference in comfort. Knows the ins and out of the matchup and knows that he is 1 CS away from ticking level 6. So it's just a complete read of the situation coming in from the top laner of Frank Esports, and this is a much different start. Even though the gold lead isn't that large right now, you can already see there's a much difference in confidence level.
Yeah, that's a big turnaround already, and I think what's brilliant about this is Holo doesn't even have to be in the top side. He can actually focus his attention down bot. Does not have his ultimate yet, but still would be able to go for a dive setup should he want to, and just going to allow carries and M&M to push this one, secure a plate down on that bottom side soon enough. Whoa, Chakram stinging a little bit. M&M goes forward, does get stunned up by the bubble, takes a tower shot, has to be careful not to go too deep into that, and Holo just soloing out on the Ocean Dragon all the meanwhile.
Thunder could get ganked again.
Yes, he could. He has the Shroud on, but Hana going to be searching for him. Nesty as well. Shuriken thrown into Nesty. He's out of there. Fool me once. Maybe that's first blood. Well, not going to happen the second time.
Yep. Nicely played. Coming in for Pretender, of course, now level 6. Has plenty of dashes, so extra safety. He plays the fight right. And he will be fine. They secure themselves the first dragon for the side of Frank Esports. Extra sustain, maybe not that much, but it's still a small laning edge. Which means DCG now they need to start looking to open up the map. Move out of these lane phases. Because they are starting to fall a little bit behind, right? The mid lane, a bit rough here. Pretender playing the lane super well. And in that bot lane, M&M staying even with the Nephilios is exactly where you want to be. Even in this top side, while down in CS has the kill advantage, and of course will outscale in the 1v1.
Yeah, meanwhile, Holo sniffs out Hana's attempt on this Herald.
Nesty
does have the Keeper's Verdict if he wanted to knock him and Nesty away, but with Leaky coming
Everyone's coming
as well, I don't know if they want this one. Oh, he whiffs it
he
as he gets locked in and pulled back by the chains. Let's see if they can get a bit of playoff. It's Pretender is hunting onto Nesty. They look for this one. Herald's still aggroed in this. It actually gets taken, stolen away. If Pretender gets the final hit, they take Leaky out as well. Dinner and dessert. Frank Esports come up with it all.
Oh my lord. Frank Esports, they get the Rift Herald because there's no smite available on Hana. And DCG misposition themselves to get punished. And Frank Esports get both of the first objectives. That is massive news for them, especially when Pretender gets the Rift Herald. He can get solo plate gold. Ari has a 20 CS advantage. This is incredibly terrifying for them, for the side of DCG to deal with later on, as Holo, I mean, he makes a kind of a big blunder here. Gets CC'd up, whiffs on his ultimate, and while he is able to deny the dashes, it's not enough. But the reinforces are here, and that's the big difference.
Man,
oh, it's actually the execution used onto Shelly.
Oh boy, and that is huge right now. Pretender off to a flying start. Nesty uses his own ultimate against him and actually does start to chase him down a little bit. Nonetheless, you can see the difference in confidence, the difference in the aggression and the decisiveness that Frank have this game. Still got to be careful, respect that culling damage from Frescata. They do. But whatever the coaching staff said after game one, it clearly has had a positive impact on this Frank Esports side.
Yeah, hopefully it sort of rallied the troops to a degree. Carries did get absolutely kind of shellacked in game number one. I liked the Lulu answer. not look to be the main engage tool. Does get hit by the bubble, but Hollow is in the vicinity, and he does have Hex Flash, so he can come over these walls.
It might be a bubble bursted if they don't respect the possibility there. Some warding coverage as well means that Frank can keep track of what's going on down bot, and Hana just hasn't had the same level of impact on the Sejuani flex. He is coming up for lane gank onto YSKM now into a level disadvantage in the matchup, and I think YSKM feeling pretty confident. The Ignite is on, and there goes the Ice Bola into the Hextech ultimatum, but it's his own grave that he digs there. Leaky certainly baited that out quite well in the World Ender.
Very, very good punish coming in from DCG, and because YSKM takes the ultimate, of course, he doesn't know Hana's in the area, right? So he just goes in and eats the Bola right after the ultimatum comes out, which is a little bit tragic. Definitely had the ability to outplay if he was a little bit more aware of the situation, but didn't have that knowledge. Pretender with this Rift Herald, about a minute left on it. So we should look for him to really throw it down soon. Maybe he even just goes top lane and they just get more gold into both of their solo laners, but only a minute until this dragon.
Yeah, I think Frank wants to make sure they keep their side strong down towards the bottom. So I wouldn't be too surprised if we see the Herald just dropped as a deflection, if you will. But it wouldn't get a whole lot of value out of it, so I'm curious to see what the choice ends up being. 12 minutes about to hit on the game clock, and it is a dead even gold game with the dragon advantage to Frank, but also a confidence advantage to them. They have been playing out so much better in game number one. The buys start to come in. Gale Force picked up by the Aphelios. There's Rift Herald in the mid lane. Pretender just going to shepherd that one in and actually dives Nesty under the tower for a second. It's going to be a few plates his way. Solo gold as well.
Yep. That's a kill's worth of gold right there. So, I mean, even more, right? 480, a lot of extra money going into his hands. We'll see what he can complete off
the proto belt
this.
soon, or the rocket belt rather.
Yeah, because he did opt for the early Oblivion Orb to try and cut down a little bit of sustain coming in from ST. It does prevent him from getting the item completion on his Mythic, but he does have more components than ST.
Yeah, he's got a lot of pieces at the moment. ST definitely been set a little further and further behind. Deep Cross not keen to let this dragon go for free.
On the side.
Are going to muscle in here. He might be in for a flip as Kriskata hops in the Blast Cone. Culling channel is out. And Hana whiffs on the ultimate, but they do find Pretender with the perfect execution. He is able to stay alive and dodges the bubble as well. Leaky coming through. The Poppycopter wind up ejects Woody from the fight. Now it's a 4v4 yet again.
Oh,
but
not
Nesty
ideal.
steals Holo's ultimate as the dragon resets.
YSKM is coming down, but a lot of cooldowns have been burned. Nesty, he has to be the main engage now.
Waiting around the backside of this one, Pretender looking for an execution of his own. If he can find it, Dragon's re-aggroed, staying on. Leaky flips, carries, and here we go. The wallbang doesn't quite connect where it wanted to, as the Moonlight Vigil isn't quite going to hit hard enough. YSKM looking for a flank, and here's the wind-up. Does whiff on the flash, burned. And what a dragon dance we really have. This ain't HBL Max, though.
Yeah, more and more cooldowns being burned. Leaky now.
Here we go. They're going in for this one, and here we go. Onto the back line. They find Kriskata. The Hextech ultimatum don't quite take him out of the fight. Dragon down to 700 hit points. Smited away by Hana. Frank lose it at the last second, but don't lose any of their lives.
Oh, that was such a huge fight. The game could have just shattered wide open right there. DCG, they managed to get themselves the second dragon, but look on the flip side, Frank Esports, they have lost pretty much all of their summoners. And DCG, this is a big opening, right? You can look to just keep fighting because of those missing summoners or summoner advantage. That could be massive for them to change this small gold lead and about 300 gold into something much, much larger, much more damning.
Let's see if they recognize the window that they have to work with here. Herald on the Rift. You see a swap down by Frank as YSKM takes to the bottom side, facing off solo against Nesty. No plates any longer. Nesty actually finds him on that abscond there. YSKM, I think, might have met his match in that 1v1.
I mean, it is the crown completion, right? So
That's
it
true.
will mitigate a lot of the damage, but now that that has come off,
Under
yeah, the
tower.
kick does just a little bit more.
Boy!
Why is
Oh no,
down?
Nesty stole the ultimatum, and he's got the adaptive defenses, but I don't know if he's going to stay alive long enough for a Holo to get there. Maybe he will. The hook shot bait buys time into the wall bang, and Holo gets the kill on that side of the map. Deep cross, a little too overconfident is Nesty there.
Yeah, and at the very least, Frank Esports are starting to play a two-man game with Holo and YSK. Understanding, hey, whoever shows up, we can just kill him because we have Poppy. Both of these solo laners are dash-reliant solo laners, so if you get on top of them with that Poppy, they cannot get away from you, and with the deletion power and easy execution of the Camille ultimate, also pays dividends.
Yeah, Eminem. Oh my goodness, that was a huge
That's a 2v2 kill.
as he face tanked the Kolig, knowing he had a wild growth right on top of him. Man, Frank Esports, they're finding these skirmishes and building the leads. However, the gold is still the same, identical, even at this moment.
Yeah, it felt like they should be generating a lead, but so far, DCG have done enough on the opposite ends of the map, right, to answer back. Get the tower top lane, they now get a second rift, the second Rift Herald, so they have the possibility to really push out these side lanes. We get to see the replay of 2v2. And good culling here, I do like it. And Eminem, though, with the Gale Force, does manage to turn the damage around in that bot lane. What do we know? It's Nesty getting collapsed upon once more.
He steals the Poppy ult, though.
Yeah, this time he's able to hold off on stealing an ultimate, which means he's able to disengage the situation. Doesn't burn it onto the ultimatum.
His chains back and forth, gets them out of there.
3 people now.
YSCam, Holo, Pretender, all here. Carries as well was in the area as the rotation will head back towards the mid lane. I think we could be in for a little longer one this time, Nightstar.
Yep. And this is also a big spike for carries, right? He has 2 kills to his name, but he's been able to get a big ticket item off of it, the Moonstone. That's going to add a lot more sustain for their team, add extra layers of shielding. Once that does get stacking in a fight, that'll give them a lot more uptime as carries. Okay, going back in for carry's situation, at least he understands that he's in a bad spot and he's able to sidestep.
Steadfast presence on Holo denies Leaky's charge in here, but the Rift Herald is popped in the mid as Deep Cross are looking to push in. The Poppycopter windup ejects both the Herald and Hana. This is just going to be the reset as Deep Cross come in, and I think they might try to force down the door. Nesty in the mid dives his way forward, and now Shelly's going to charge. Deep Cross,
yeah,
they won't push the issue.
And that's the big thing. They can't actually secure the turret because they either have to just straight engage without the Ice Bola and just lose that bot tier 2, or, you know, they have to address that bottom lane. So they look to pull off. Hana now looking to threaten yet another play, but the flanks are being addressed by Frank Esports though.
Much better. They get the tower for themselves, look to set up for this dragon. It is a Cloud Soul this game. Not the combat stats you're looking for. Nonetheless, I think Frank will be happy to lock them up if they can get on top of it.
Move speed will help considerably here as, you know, on the one hand you have a lot of dive, on the other hand you have a lot of chase, right? With the Lucian, Aatrox, and Silas. So both teams do enjoy the extra movement speed. Of course, it's just not the same as something like a Hex Tech.
Or even an Infernal. All the same, they'll look for getting it out. They look for taking the Poppy down. Holo staying alive for quite a long time in this one. They're in the back line looking to hunt somebody down as Leaky's already deleted off the map, and YSGM on the front does chase Deep Cross away. The chase is still on, though, as they get the tax sweep on. Polymorph there carries almost using the last of his mana. Forces the flash out of Woody. Fight is won. Only 1 kill, but it earns Frank Esports the right to take this dragon.
Really big win there for the side of Frank Esports. Yes, it's only 1 kill, but it's on to Leaky, who is such a large drain tank, right? Had 2 kills to his name, so he was going to be incredibly difficult for them to deal with in a full-blown team fight, but because he just kind of is stuck in the middle, in the thick of things by himself, they were able to isolate him and eventually take him down. Second dragon.
Look at that fight again. Yeah, this was Deep Cross choosing to go on to Holo. They dump everything into him, but he survives.
He is Poppy, and he has wild growth. The backside unattended. Right, they overforced the issue there, and Pretender just jumping in onto Cascada just forces him away. He doesn't even have to do anything, just kind of sits there in his shroud and looks menacingly at that bot duo. And it's been a bit of a night and day performance when it comes to the bot lane performance, right? Cascada on the Kalista, they were ahead, able to sort of dive in with the rest of his squad. This time on the Lucian, has to play perhaps a little bit more measured, and the opposite pressure coming in from an Akali is a lot higher than what was coming out from the Arc.
Yeah, this is definitely looks a lot better, and I think Frank picked the right time to adapt in the draft, getting what they needed. Also, the pressure just didn't come out of Deep Cross in the same way. That matchup in the top side was much more favorable for YSKM by virtue of him being able to 1v1 it most of the time, and now he's become a bit of a side lane threat that Deep Cross are having a hard time dealing with. Right back to it. Yeah, Nesty can steal Hextech Ultimatum, but Holo is much more aggressive and active on the map than he was in Game 1. I almost feel like these teams have kind of flipped a little bit in what their problems have been. The difference, of course, being that Deep Cross are still finding ways to react, still finding times. Frank, it took them a game to wake up, but I think they are, in fact, awake and ready for the action.
And the next item that's being built up by carries looks to be the Mikhail's Crucible. So that will add even further safety for Holo or Eminem. For Holo, it's allowing him to just kind of face check with impunity towards these bushes and eat that Ice Bullet. Or if Eminem does get picked out, well, there's kind of an edit undo button with that Crucible.
Yeah, well, we were talking about they needed to add some protection for their Aphelios, considering they have the multi-man dive composition otherwise. If they all go in and he's left on the back line, could get counter-dove. But now they have extra protection. Not only that, the Lulu's Wild Growth has come in handy. We've seen it play out in the 2v2 multiple times, and Eminem's definitely having a pretty good game as a result. Carries has been night and day comparatively. First game, really poor positioning, very bizarre timings on his back and item buys, and this game, he knows exactly what his job is. It is protect Eminem until he can pop off, or whoever gets dove. Get aggressive with Clear Lances.
Oh yeah. Especially with this Moonstone, right? He's going to provide so much value for his team as long as he's able to play safe. So doesn't need to overextend and overexert himself as we get to see the second items starting to come through. It is completed onto the Camille, so this is the side lane terror that will now be online, because Leaky, even though yes he does have the Death Dance, it's going to provide a good amount in these fights. The armor means nothing to your Camille.
Deep Cross still trying to knock down this first outer tower. They will be able to get it to go in and find Holo, but again, he's tanking through the Steadfast Presence, doing so much work, but finally he falls down, and now YSKM comes through. They say it's our turn to fight, but Deep Cross coming right back in. They knock him out of the fight. They take Pretender and Eminem down, looking for more, as there was nobody left to protect the carry, and Carries is the only one who survives. And wouldn't you know it now, Nightstar, turnabout is fair play, and the Baron is on the menu.
And DCG, they pull the trigger when they know there's no flank coming in. The teleport from YSKM is not fast enough, so it allows them to dive forward a lot more aggressively in that situation. And they were also able to finish off Holo. This time around, Frank Esports unable to keep their jungler alive, and then that's where things do break down for Eminem. He can't walk forward as aggressive as he'd like to anymore because he doesn't have that front line. This was the concern for me for this Aphelios when we saw it come back into this game, right, in the draft, because in game number 1 he didn't have good protection and suffered a lot, couldn't walk up to get these autos, and once more with all the CC coming in, yes, he is getting some autos in, but it's onto Nesty. He isn't able to auto priority targets. And when you lose Holo, the other champions aren't going to frontline for you.
Yeah, knocking carries out meant that they really couldn't add extra protection after the fact, and really nice decisiveness from Deep Cross Gaming. They just forced the issue and managed to burst through just mountains of shielding and get the fight win they were desperately looking for. Gold flips to their favor. They have Baron buff on 5. All of a sudden, they're right back in the driver's seat, Nightstar.
Hana also going for the Knight's Vow here, so just trying to make sure his AD carry can play a little bit more risque, right? Because of the extra damage mitigation coming in from the Knight's Vow will help in keeping Cascada alive. And now YSKM out on the side will be able to hook shot away. Is Baron power play coming in from DCG, and this is where they can just break this game open. Side of Frank Esports, they do have to be really, really careful with their approach.
Yeah, they do. Might need to bring Pretender in on that teleport play, and here we go. They get the stun lock onto Holo once again. The Moonlight Vigil comes through, doesn't do nearly enough damage as the Hectic ultimatum is fed off back of the teleport. Holo on the front line, taken low, taken out. The TP now comes through for Nesty, and they will look to keep charging forward. They've got CC chains of their own as they just lash it back and forth, taking 2 kills down and break the base open. Deep Cross, they had a rough ride to this one, but all of a sudden, give them a few inches and they take a mile. Looking to close this game out as Eminem already down to half his hit points and dove in by Nesty. Taken out. Nesty going forward again and makes himself golden for just a few seconds. Pretender can't even get safely back to Fountain before he's chunked almost down to 0. And I think this is almost going to be game, but wait a minute. Hana gets bursted down as they are forced to back away. Deep Cross realized they overplayed their hand.
All right, give me the zoom. Yep. They even put 2 wards on top of them.
Oh boy. All right, that was a little hectic. Everybody back out. We'll reset. We'll start again. Let's take a look at the damage as the dust has settled, Nightstar. Currently, that game was very close to ending, but the death timers weren't quite long enough for Deep Cross to do it. They get a little too aggro. Let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this play again from the very beginning when it looks so good.
Cascada opening up with the Colleen. This is what makes Lucian good, is that when you run first strike, you just have to be super proactive with your ult usage, going in, get a bunch of chunk damage, and the side of Frank Esports to try and continue the play. They just don't have much staying power, especially against the extra Baron stats coming in from DCG. They have the gold advantage, and again, Eminem, he can't do anything in these fights, and it's not really his fault. It's just the fact he doesn't have a front line to play with. So,
well, the backline's diving him pretty well. Nesty doing great work with the perfect execution. But then the focus gets split. We didn't even get to see it because it looks like we have another fight. They did take way too many. And Holo is taking a lot of damage as well. And even through shields, not much he can do here with the knockup. Cascada takes him down. That Lucian is coming out swinging in the later stages of this game. And now Deep Cross keep on sieging, even with the Baron gone. They find Eminem pulling channel. Here comes YSKM and Pretender, but even with the chase down, he Mager Cascada, who cleanses out, but the rest of the cavalry is right behind him as he tries to bait them out off the sides. Eminem takes Woody down in all of the chaos, and you can see the Pretender's going to fall as well. Now carries an Eminem, trying to do some damage as YSKM rejoins the team on the hook shot, pulled in, but the damage seems to be there for Deep Cross Gaming to keep the chains and trains rolling. Cascada with another kill. Nesty de-aggro's himself. You can see the shutdown in the back. YSKM gets it, but Nesty takes him down anyways. And oh boy, it is a boxing match here as the TP comes into the tower.
Should be the game.
Holo, Leaky taking this one out. You gotta think this is the end of it.
Surely. With the waves already in the base and only 1 tower left to defend. Defender is up in 8 seconds, but I don't think that's going to be quick enough, as there is not much HP left onto that Nexus tower. He will respawn in time to see that Nexus explode.
Woo. Based on the way that game was going, it looked like Frank were going to lock it up for a good 25 minutes of it. But then Deep Cross find a couple of fantastic fights, turn it into Baron Nashor, go almost all the distance, and even when they get forced off, as soon as we get out of the replay, it's right back into it again, and it showcases the decisiveness that this team has, the redemption story for them to bounce back after a shellacking at the hands of Megabank Beyond Gaming. Well, Nightstar, they're on the verge of repeating their spring history when they 3-0'd Frank Esports and shut the door on their playoff hopes.
It was a bit of a different Frank Esports, but it looks like it might still be that same result. As Deep Cross Gaming, they really just... It was a very quiet game number 2. It looked like it wasn't going to be the same game scripts because there wasn't as much roaming tools coming in from DCG. And the game script was different. It wasn't about out roaming the side of Frank Esports and out macroing them. It was about brute forcing these fights. They saw the 4-man group up and it was like, well, they can teleport in, but if we just go now, the teleport won't arrive fast enough and we can just finish the fight before then.
Yeah, Frank Esports had a lot better, I think, individual performances this time around than Game 1. We saw them stepping up in skirmishes. We saw the 2v2 holding its own against Solution Nami lane and, in fact, winning. Carries definitely was much improved. This Kali was starting to become a terror, and YSKM was getting on a roll with the side lane. But Deep Cross Gaming showed that they were greater than the sum of their parts just when it seemed like the Lucian Nami fall-off was going to happen and they didn't have enough damage anywhere else on the map. They gathered as a death ball and just charged down mid lane. It took them so long to get that tower, but they finally did. And with the dive on, with all of the shields and the steadfast presence that Holo had, they were able to shred through it nonetheless. And Nesty stepped up on this Silas. Critical usage of the stolen Poppycopter and other ultimates, especially the Keeper's Verdict, though. That really just gave them the numbers advantage, flipped it back around. This is one of the reasons Silas is such a contested pickup, because you can turn your own strategies against you. And Deep Cross, something flipped. The switch flipped, and all of a sudden they knew what to do.
Yeah, and then the team play overall coming in from DCG really shining in this game number 2. And on the flip side for DCG, the Philios pick can work if you play around him. But once more, Frank Esports drafted a composition where the Philios can't ever walk up to auto. And that was problematic because he really needed to carry these fights. They didn't have any disengage for the 1-4 to buy time for YSKM to really work his magic in the side lane. And they also didn't have the raw team fight damage because they were running a Camille Akali who really needed to generate picks against a Silas, an Aatrox, a Sejuani. Your only targets is the Knight's Vow, Lucian, or Woody on the Nami pick.
Yeah, and this was unfortunately just Frank getting completely blindsided. The Camille wasn't even ready for that one, had to teleport in, came in late. The fight was not over by then, but it was very small window to react. That one fight turned into a Baron, and here we go, out of the replay. You can see, oh no, Holo can't even get his Hex Flash off in time, and yeah, he's got Steadfast Presence, he's got the Wild Growth, and it's not enough. There's too much damage, there's too much stun lock, and without that front line, it's just a cleanup duty for Deep Cross. This fight goes back and forth for a little while with some great dive attempts. Individual moments are good from the Frank Esports side. YSKM nearly gets the big kill, and Pretender as well, but as a unit, as a team, Deep Cross, they're just the better one.
Yeah, they were able to find a couple on the back end, but then once Nesty shows up, the rest of the fight's kind of just done and dust. Unfortunately, like, again, Eminem has been a pretty standout player for me for this team. They just aren't putting him in positions to succeed. Like, no matter how good your positioning is, it has to be, like, you're looking at Prince levels or Viper levels of performance to actually be able to get value out of that Philios.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation to be in, and even so, Frank, this was a much better game for most of it. You can see the moment when it's a massive drop-off, when they just lost a couple of back-to-back fights, and really not even fights so much as they just lost Holo way too fast, because Deep Cross realized they could dump everything into it, and found those angles in the 5v5s, and in some cases 5v4s that Frank really shouldn't have allowed them to have. Some of the drafting is to blame for that, surely because they weren't able to protect the Aphelios adequately, but he wasn't even the first or even second target in a lot of these fights. Deep Cross just blew through the front line.
Yeah, and it was actually a really good read coming in from the side of DCG as Nesty. He gets back-to-back MVPs.
Wow.
Definitely very, very good in team fights. We've been critical of his lane phase. That has also improved a lot in this summer split. And as a result, you've seen Deep Cross Gaming sort of take that next step in their evolution. They still need one more, though.
They do. They get that 3-0, they'd repeat spring split history. But man, Nesty has stepped up so much in these two games. Obviously, it's the entire team that's been playing well around him as well. But I think the Silas has to be looked at as a potential ban now. And again, Nesty back on form does spell a lot of trouble for Frank Esports as they are on the verge of being knocked out in a clean sweep. We'll see if they can stay alive in this next game right after this break.